Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Pinos Palace, just west of Warland, Florida. I am in the Extreme Studios, and I'm presenting to you, ladies and gentlemen, by popular request. It's been on hiatus for a year or two. Rob's Redskins Review, where I review weekly as a fan of 40 years what my take is initially after watching it every game week to week. Been doing this for quite some time. I remember the glory days like a lot of our older listeners here on the Extreme Movie Show. And for you younger listeners, the issue with the name change really pissed me off, but I'm going to keep it the Redskins Review because it's my channel and I feel like it. But one of the things I like to kind of talk about here as a lifelong sports fan on and off YouTube is I like to just kind of give you my impressions. I in no way say I'm a football coach and all that. So one of a million, let's say. But as far as looking at tonight's game, which against the Giants, one thing that stuck out to me early on was how the NFL has changed over the past few years. Right now, with the 17th game, with weird scheduling, Thursday nights, overseas, international, you don't get a much chance to practice. You don't get as much chance to kind of fine tune yourself. So there's always a little bit of variance in those first, say, 3 or 4 games in the season. And typically, the old school thought is after about 4 games, you have an idea of where you're going to be. And I think last year with Washington, going 12-5 in the regular season, getting to the conference championship was what we would call being well above the mean, as it were. And for you economic freaks out there and people like math, I was afraid that we might have a bit of a sophomore slump and kind of regress to the mean, as people like to sit there and say. And the over-under, which I tweeted out earlier, I believe from Vegas, is 9.5 games. But I'll be honest, I'll be positive and say for the first time in years, I've decided to go with the over because they proved to me that they can work well. And most importantly, not because they have Jay Daniels, but because they seem like they're being coached well. I went with 10 wins. And tonight in the game that they just got done playing here against the Giants, New York Football Giants, who jettisoned Daniel Jones off, I was actually a Daniel Jones believer. I know he probably didn't play well, and I know a lot of Giants fans talk to me about it. But bottom line is I didn't know what to expect. And so there's a lot of unknowns going into this, right? I think the most exciting thing for me watching the game is, one, you come away with a win. Two, you look for some bright spots, see if there's a theme that you can grasp onto for week 2 and see how things go before you have your bye week and things get going in the conference schedule. But early on, playing at home against an opponent like the Giants and getting that early win where it counts, that's important. So right now, taking a look at the offense, the first thing I would sit there and say is it all starts with Jaden Daniels. To me, I thought he had a rather pedestrian game. I'd give it about a B minus C plus. He played well, looked smooth. He seemed kind of calm and under control. But as a fan, I just felt like he missed a few throws. The receivers could have caught a few, maybe here and there. But this is kind of what happens. It's a bit sloppier early on, and I just thought it was very disappointing going into halftime there with him throwing it away. It was a really bad decision, and not being able to come away with 3 and really step on the throat of the Giants. Giants, to their credit, did not play well at all, but they still were able to hang around in it and make it contentious going in the fourth quarter. You don't need something like that, and that's where Washington as a team has to learn how to mature. And they've got a nice mix of some younger people, but a lot of vets that know this. So hopefully that gets cleaned up here too, because overall, offensively, sloppy. A lot of penalties, a lot of little nickel and dime stuff. Even though I think they're coached generally well as a team, they knew what they wanted to do. The execution was really not on par with what we expected going into last year. And last year, again, they won all those close games, went forward a lot. That's hard to replicate. So I was really hoping they could clean it up. I did think that there was one hit that this guy on the special teams put on somebody, I think in the end of the first quarter, going into the second quarter. Just, oh my God, it just came off really, really great. Nobody really talked about it because nobody cares about special teams and the rules anymore, but it was phenomenal. And I thought the energy level of Washington was really good. And also with the fans, now that they're starting to add seats back to the stadium, you could actually hear them chanting Terry for a little bit because he didn't really get a lot of targets today. But then it was really exciting later in the game to sit there and have them all talking about the 7th round, 245th pick, Bill, the running back, where everyone's chanting, Bill, Bill, Bill. That was pretty cool. Overall, defensively, I was more interested as this season goes on to see if their defense can actually get to at least average or at least maybe get a few more turnovers. The offense can be good enough to score points. We know that. We don't know with some slight changes if they're going to have the same production. Right now, it looks like they probably can continue that way. So for me, I was really concerned with, is the front four going to be able to stop the run, number one? That's still old school to me. But surprisingly today, the defensive line, even with some new players there, they were able to get pressure on it and run in a 4-man front. The one thing I noticed, especially a little bit later in special situations. They either brought the house on a blitz and really got to the quarterback with a lot of hurries today. That was very exciting to see. But the other thing too is they had a little bit of a different look I haven't seen too much. It reminded me of some old school 80s, 90s defensive stances where instead of putting your hand in the ground or going out wide, you'd actually just kind of stand up there too. So it's interesting to see that they had a few new wrinkles based off the personnel they had in there on the defensive line. I liked seeing that. And of course, the cornerback situation, on both sides there, I don't think they were really tested today. It wasn't until in the second half when New York got desperate that we started seeing a lot of deep passes where they started getting challenged a little bit. But, overall, a good effort on the defensive end. That they played with some energy. It's a little easier to get in the defensive flow of things rather than offense because that's more of a timing issue. Defense is a little bit more, set it and forget it kind of thing. And I liked what I saw, but I wasn't blown away with it. So, like I say, it's a decent win. It was a decent effort, I think, on their part. I'm glad it was at home. I think that obviously the first four games, once if you have like a 2-2 record or 3-1, you have a very high percentage of making it into the playoffs. That's something that's always stuck in my mind too. When you look at analytics, biggest analytic guy, it's still something that seems to be true. And moving forward, I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform against the elite because that's really at this level where we're going to judge them. If they're going to be a contender, if they're going to be somebody that actually could do some damage in the playoffs, you're going to have to just really be in there and put these lesser teams away. I really don't know what to think of the Giants other than out of the conference. I don't think they're one of the better teams, certainly. And then here in the division, I would put them fourth with Dallas third, Washington second, and the Eagles first. Kind of have to do it in that order. So, but getting one early matters, and that's important. Sometimes, you get one later in the season, and that's great because the season's not over. And if you can just get that one game, it almost counts as like a game and a half or two because of if you win one and they lose one, that moves you up a little bit in the playoff picture. So I was glad to see that. I really don't know how much you can take away from week one. I don't think a lot, no matter what the final score was, because New York, I just felt like they weren't going to win and they were just kind of half a step behind. And if I'm a Giants fan, I'd be really frustrated with what I saw there. I didn't see anything that reminded me of great Giant teams in the past that I've gotten used to seeing. That being said, they hung around. They had some chances. Things didn't go their way. I hope Washington doesn't get spoiled with this. On the surface, might seem a relatively pedestrian type of performance here and win. You're going to have some of those during the season where you're going to be up, but take care of it early because the one biggest thing that I think Washington's got to watch out for is Jay Daniels is one cracked rib away again, like from last year, of getting hurt, getting injured. And even though he may put on 10, 15 pounds, he needs to put on another 10, 15 more at least. They had a lot of breaks and fortune go their way. And typically you have to pay the piper on the other side of it. And I'm hoping that's not the season. I thought that with Jaden Daniels that the Giants at least might have had a different way of coming after him or not letting him pick them apart in man-to-man, which Jaden Daniels is good for. The zone part to it, just really, they didn't do good at it all. So it's really hard to judge how good his performance was. That's why I don't rank it that high. But again, end of the day, it's a win. It's solid. It's something that, you can be happy about, watch the tape, get better for next week. I think the story going forward, going into the next game, of course, is Bill with his pretty big run he had there towards the fourth that helped seal it. The juice he had once he got to the hole, I think B-Rob being gone, nobody's even thinking about that right now. So overall, a decent effort, solid. We've got 16 more of these at a minimum to go. There's going to be some more ups and downs with it. So not the best way to start, but good enough, and that's fine for what you have to do here in the NFL. So until we talk about the game next week and do a preview of that, I'll be seeing you guys then. Make sure to check that out there. I want to say thanks to some of the old timers like myself that remember RFK Stadium back in the old days during the glory days, like I did, that just responded and kind of said, oh, you have to come back and talk about it now that Jane Daniels is a quarterback and we have a change in ownership. So one of the main reasons why I decided to do that is because it's hard not to feel that sense of community that the Redskins fans have and the newer Commanders fans have too, especially with all the stuff they've gone through. And think about it, it's been more than a generation since Washington's been considered elite. To me, they're not elite until they win, but we got a nice promising start to possibly that happening here. I am looking forward to it. And despite what any of us can argue are the changes in the modern NFL and sports in general, It still is nice when they play hard and they win, and it does remind you of the good old days too. So for those of you that haven't experienced some of those high, hopefully that this will happen here in a couple years, maybe once or twice, especially in your lifetime. If you can get one, you'll remember for the rest of your life. And for the old timers, maybe get one more. This is your host, Rob. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing the link out, and check out the Extreme Movie Show, where we cover TVs, movies, requests. I'm an 80s based guy, so we have a lot from there. If you have special requests, let me know. Good night now.